Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. And this podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. For the first time in its 180-year history, the Maison Simon, better known as Simons, based in Quebec City, will be led by a non-family member as CEO. You're about to meet him. Simons was founded in 1840 by John Simons in Quebec City. It is Canada's oldest private family business with 15 Simon stores. My guest in this exclusive interview is Simons' new CEO, Bernard Leblanc. After launching his business career at Simons, then a stint abroad, Bernard came back to Quebec City, assuming several key roles until ultimately being offered the leadership of this iconic Canadian retailer. In a wide-ranging interview, we talk about his career journey, plans for Simons, and how the COVID era may have changed retail, yet the fundamentals continue to create remarkable connections with consumers.
Sometimes we think that fancy gadgets and bells and whistles are what's going to make it different. I don't believe in that. I think people are still just looking for a good, authentic, and heartwarming human connection.
Let's listen in now. Bernard, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's a big, busy week in your life. There's a big announcement we're going to talk about. And where am I finding you today? Whereabouts are you coming to me from?
I'm actually in Quebec City at head office.
Let's jump right in. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background. Such an interesting background. You've got both lots of Canadian global experience and your current role, which is a new role at Simons.
Sure. Well, I'm on my second cycle at Simons. In fact, I was with the company back in the 90s, more in a merchant type role where I was responsible for a group of buyers and also working with our product development team and design team on all of our exclusive product. And then I had the opportunity to go and join BRP, the recreational products group of Bombardier at the time, and which became BRP afterwards, and had a pretty diverse career there. Started in a division that was building technical apparel and accessories, and moved on more to manufacturing and sourcing operations in different product categories, and that brought me overseas to Asia to head up the business there, and to Europe as a general manager, and then back to Canada. At which time, once I was back, it was just at the point where Simons was expanding nationally, and it was an opportunity for me. Checked in with Peter, see how he was doing. Life throws funny things at you sometimes. We frankly both decided that it'd be kind of nice to work together again. And so I came back to the company in 2015, and I've been here since then, overseeing operations. And just recently, as of 2 days ago, took on the role of president and CEO, which I'm honored to have the opportunity to take on.
It's fantastic news. I mean, the first non-family member. So I want to get into that and talk about how you guys see governance and how you see the operations and all that great stuff. Now, did you always want to be in business? Like sometimes retail is described as the accidental career. You've kind of gone back and forth into retail, right. Certainly connected to product. But, when you were growing up, is this something you always wanted to do, or how did you find yourself here?
Can I say always wanted? Perhaps not. However, I did work in retail while I was in school, and so I have a service mindset. I enjoy being with people. I like serving customers and discovering their needs and trying to respond to it. So I guess that's part of my personality. And obviously with a service organization such as Simons, there's a great fit there in terms of values. And I'm originally from Montreal. I moved to Quebec City in the early 90s. My wife is from Quebec City. She's a true Quebec City girl. And so, when I came into Quebec City, I was just, in fact, I had worked, then gone back to university, and I had finished my bachelor's degree, and decided to just come and knock on the door at Simons because of the reputation, frankly, to see whether there'd be something interesting for me to do. And so that's how I came to the company originally. Providence has a nice way of working sometimes. It's a company I've always loved and profoundly enjoyed. So I'm glad to have the opportunity to work in retail and to work in what I would consider to be the best company in retail. My background's, my educational background's in business. I have a bachelor's degree in commerce with a major in international business and a minor in finance. So, and that's what brought me to have that 15-year pause in the middle. I was really seeking to have more international experience and being more of a Canadian company at Simon's. It was just an opportunity for me to explore more international boundaries, more complex cultural environments, and so on. So that's what has a short story, I guess, around what has brought me here today.
Well, let's talk about Simon. So, pretty much no one listening to this podcast would not know the name, though they might not know enough about the brand. So, just give me the basics. Your head office based in Quebec City, and recently, I don't know, in the past decade, expanded beyond that. But how many stores? Where do you operate? And what makes Simon's different?
Okay, well, what people may not know is, in fact, Simon's is the oldest privately held family business in Canada. It was founded in 1840, so we're just turning the page on 182 years of history.
Wow,
and you pointed out earlier, I'm the first non-family member to take the lead of the company. So that is certainly, again, a huge vote of confidence. The current footprint of the company, in fact, we have 15 stores across Canada, soon 16, because we are opening a brand new store in Fairview Point Claire on the West Island of Montreal. Our stores, so we have 10 stores in Quebec, in the province of Quebec. So in Quebec City, in Sherbrooke, in the Montreal area, in Gatineau as well. And we have our stores outside of Quebec in Ontario, Alberta, and BC. So Ottawa and Mississauga for the stores in Ontario.
Right in my backyard.
2 stores in Edmonton, 1 in Calgary, and 1 on the west end of Vancouver at Park Royal.
It took the business a while to expand, even out of Quebec City. I remember thinking, a long, great history. Talk about that a little bit. Was it a measure twice, cut once kind of idea, or was it at one point? Listen, we need to go national. We need scale and scope, and we've done what we can do in the province of Quebec.
I think there's the latter of what you said is probably the closest to what was going on. It was this element of, in order to really compete with the big players in the industry, and the fact that the competition was quickly becoming global with large players like H&M and Zara, being very, very active and present in the marketplace. If you didn't have scale and scope, it was extremely difficult to really compete with some of those massive global players. Yeah. The infrastructure, the ecosystem probably got even worse when we had the tech giants come in and making that scale and scope even bigger. So that was a starting point. There's also it was just a matter of being able to master, have the talent pool, I guess, to be able to master what we had as a footprint. And it's a big change for a company that's always been very regional. It was a big decision to go outside of Quebec City, and that actually happened during my first tenure with the company. So, it's not that ancient that this company was only around the 3 stores in Quebec City, and so it took some time to make to become confident enough that the brand would resonate outside of Quebec City first of all.
And the merchandise, right? I mean, the merchandise assortment that you might have in Quebec, more influenced perhaps by Europe than the West. Is that part of it? Are we confident that the merchandise that we offer in Quebec is going to be as popular in Edmonton as it is here? Is that a piece of it?
We've taken the orientation of offering the same product assortment across all of our locations and to have a pretty pretty tight alignment even between what we offer online and in store. And to the exception of our marketplace assortment, but even there, we remain extremely curated to ensure that it's true to brand. The unique part of our assortment is the fact that there's 70% roughly of our product assortment that is exclusive. That we developed in-house. We have a team of over 100 designers and technical people here in Quebec City that actually design and develop our product. And our merchant group is here also at head office, and there's a big focus on building things that you can only find at Simon's.
Yeah, it's interesting because we used to have we discussed this a lot when I was at the Shopping Channel, now Today's Shopping Choice, where we would offer brands that were not well known but great product versus we felt like we needed a couple of brands that would drive traffic because they were well known. How do you conceptualize that? I mean, taking the exclusive route that you have is a longer view, right? It feels like a long view to building success. You have a lot of control, but you also don't have the big names that sometimes can draw the traffic. Yeah.
True. I think we've been able to have a good mix. Our merchant team is always trying to find upcoming, innovative, creative brands that complement our assortment. There's a mix of, designer brands in our assortment as well as well-known national brands and complemented by emerging brands, really newcomers to the marketplace.
So it's that mix, right? It's balancing that blend, right? Really, that's
exactly.
The art and science of running what you run, right? That's the
precisely, and we integrate it with our assortment in terms of designer merchandise, and there's some very good value price basics in our assortment as well. So we try to go to a full gamut, and there's a pretty broad client base that comes to Simon's from the younger shopper all the way through to a more mature shopper. So we try to have merchandise that can cater right across the spectrum.
So when you think about, let's talk about governance for a little bit now that you've got, I understand that Peter, who's been a guest on my podcast, great interview, is still having a very active role. Did I understand that he's stepping into more the merchant role? And just talk about how the governance is going to work as you guys see it.
Absolutely.
Not really a governance podcast, but I'm just kind of curious about on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, how you're conceptualizing this.
I think it's an important part of success as well, especially for me as a non-family CEO, to have a solid governance in place, to understand where everyone's role and influence starts and stops. So to the first part of your question relative to Peter's role going forward, he is taking on the role of chief merchant. He was already very active in that role. He was actually doing two jobs at once. This is really an area where he's extremely strong and very, very competent. It is also, I would say, the most strategic part of our business is really where that product assortment and the brand resonance comes to life. And it has been and continues to be part of our success. And therefore, I think you'll have a great influence on how the brand comes to life. Both his brother Richard is also part of the buying team, and so having the two brothers in the merchant group has me stepping into this new role. I couldn't dream of a better situation. I have access to both of them. It takes some of the tension off and makes things maybe a little less stressful coming into to the new role.
I mean, it is such a case study because it is often the case that it's one of those moments, those inflection moments in a business, right, where there's a transition, whether it's a succession or whether it's a change of leadership, but particularly in a family-run business where they change that leadership profile. So it's going to be so interesting to watch. I mean, I think you're all so skilled that I think you're going to write a case study for this around the world. So
imagine how you feel once being the one that follows 5 generations.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So that's where I was saying it's so precious to be able to make this change in the context where they're still fully engaged, and just for people to understand, like these are not owners that just show up once a week to the office. Like these guys are here and they're
all in.
Hard.
They're all in,
right?
Yeah, they're all in. Yeah.
And they remain the sole owners of the organization. So both Peter and Richard are the controlling shareholders. So they're fully engaged financially as well. And they're, you were referring to governance. We have strengthened our corporate governance. On the one hand, we have a very strong advisory board with independent members and an independent chairman that leads the advisory board. It's an advisory board, but quite frankly, I've seen boards of directors in public companies in my career, and we work with this board exactly as if it was a full fiduciary board, because I think it sets the tone in terms of guidance, in terms of ensuring that we control the objectives and the and the future of the organization, and make sure that the leadership, myself plus the rest of the executive team, is delivering on the objectives and the ambitions that the family has for the business.
It's a very savvy approach. I just interviewed the McKinsey lead. She's actually Canadian, who just wrote a book called CEO Excellence, and they tried to map out in the book. It's actually a really good book, and it's an interesting interview about what are the defining 6 characteristics that lead to CEO excellence. And one of the biggest ones we talked about was managing the board to be advisors to the business. And it's exactly what you're saying, right? Take advantage of a board that is not just not just there for all the other basic governance, but leverage them and work with them so that they become valued advisors to the business, which isn't, pouring on tons of decks and hundreds of pages of stuff, but it's more philosophical, I would say, than it is operational. It's
absolutely. We have the privilege of having huge experience on our board with individuals that bring tremendous value. So, that's part of the recipe for success, I think, from a management perspective.
Yeah.
The family has also put in place a family council in order to establish kind of the objectives that they see for themselves going forward. Peter mentioned in some of the interviews that we gave together this week, and I thought it was pretty illustrative of how they feel as well. Their name is on the door.
Right.
So fundamentally, they want to make sure that their values and their intent is well represented in the way the business is managed, and that we're going to market and that we're servicing our clients in line with what the family holds true to in terms of their own
principles. Business. Very principled operator. Yeah. Very principled. I mean, and listen, we have in Canada an example of a family-run business retailer that was not successful in this transition. But I think you've got so many of the parts right that I'm very confident. Let's talk about retail. Let's talk about what does innovation look like in the department store sector? Like, is it format, service, product? Is it all of those things? As you know, the department store, I'm not even sure if you call yourself a department store. So let's start there. But what does innovation look like to you?
Right. I'm not sure I would qualify us as a department store. I think I would maybe say larger format specialty store is maybe how I would try to form. I think we fall in a space that's perhaps undefined. Maybe that sounds corny, but I think we've got somewhat of a unique space in how we deploy. And the future, I think you touched on a lot of elements that are extremely important. You probably know, and maybe your listeners know, that each of our locations is unique. We try and create an environment that's interesting, that's architecturally strong, that brings the arts to life as well within our store environment, and that is put together in order to optimize the space in which we're building the store. So it's not about just taking a square box and putting a bunch of stuff in it. There's a really thoughtful exercise in building beautiful space in building something that's unique for its environment and so on. So I think that's certainly part of our recipe, and I believe we're seeing our customers come back. Post pandemic, it's great to see people back to the store, and so we want to create a beautiful environment where people enjoy spending time in that environment. Service is the number one component for us. It's very, very central. The customer is at the very center of every single decision and opportunity that we look at. And that needs to survive. It's been there for 182 years and will remain. We're there for the customer, and that's where our mission comes to life. So we need to continue to develop our teams to be able to be the best service people in the industry, to be knowledgeable. The reality is customers are more and more knowledgeable as they come in store today. Yeah. So we have to be able to respond to that knowledge and make sure that we're respectful of the fact that sometimes they know more than our salespeople know.
Do you see, a question for you, do you see great service as table stakes, or can you make it a differentiator in the business?
In this world where, everything goes through a device of sorts, I think that, I'll step back 1 minute, where I think it is a table stakes. However, I think that you can step it up in a context of being authentic, kind, truly helpful to people, and not in the context of trying to just sell stuff, but really accompany the customer in their journey. And it seems simple, but it is not. That authentic, genuine human connection, being interested by the individual that you're speaking to, being able to spend true quality time. I often refer to it with our teams as encapsulating your moment with that customer. Right? Just imagining you're alone on the floor, just with that one person, and being able to give them all of your attention and all of your time. So, there's a differentiator in being able to be truly connected and truly attentive to what's going on with each and every customer at each and every visit. And so in that context, I think it can be a really true differentiator. And to not let... Sometimes we think that fancy gadgets and bells and whistles are what's going to make it different. I don't believe in that. I think people are still just looking for a good, authentic and heartwarming human connection. And if you can really drive that it's subtle, right? It's that subtlety and that interconnection. If you can find that subtlety, I think it's what we strive for.
I've often characterized. In fact, I was doing a media interview today, and I was on the future of shopping centers, so I want to talk to you about that. But I was talking to the reporter that retail really at a very, very high level can sometimes be conceptualized as two bifurcated elements. So you've got experience and efficiency, and luxury and value. And what you're describing is the more experiential, but you've also invested significant amounts of time, effort, and treasure, you personally as well, in e-commerce, which is, there to be efficient. It's a different kind of service level.
So maybe this is a great segue to talk about my vision for frontierless commerce. And that is a term that I've been using heavily with our teams, but I've talked to the media this week about that concept. And, some are saying, well, it's just another way to call omnichannel. And I say, no. It is very different in my mind from omnichannel. It's pushing it one step further, in which there's a unified customer journey and a unified customer experience, regardless of where and how the customer engages with you. And therefore, whether they're coming through the website or whether they're coming through social media or other types of technologies that may emerge over time, or that they end up in store, how do you interconnect all of those touch points from the customer's perspective to eliminate all breaches in continuity? And today, people will pre-shop online. Maybe they'll buy a few items online. They'll put a few on the side that they want to go see in store. But there's a break in continuity because they have to go to store and then they have to ask somebody to find those items that they
start all over again, basically.
And they start all over again. So imagine if we were able to make that journey completely seamless. And once you came into the store, we already knew what you had been looking for and that we had potentially pre-prepared it or made it available for you as you stepped into the store. I think that there's a way to really push it. And obviously it's not something that we are prepared for tomorrow morning, but I think there are tremendous opportunities for us to really bring that concept to life where there's this really, really seamless journey, like truly seamless journey. We talk about, buy online, pick up in store, buy online, return in store. What about buy in store, return online? Or, all sorts of permutations around that. And just making it so seamless that everything talks to each other and that, there really isn't we eliminate every single friction point that exists from a customer perspective. So frontierless commerce.
I love that idea. I love that idea of frontierless commerce. I mean, basically, as I've been thinking about it, it's retail, whether it's bought online, bought in store, it's becoming a distinction without a difference, right? From many perspectives.
In the end, it's retail or commerce or call it whichever way you want. But the reality is, you're responding to a customer need. And making their experience as fabulous as possible, and as memorable as possible. And so, what is it going to take in today's world to be able to deliver that? Well, I think there are still many opportunities that we can collectively work on to be able to bring that journey to life.
Let's talk about shopping malls for a bit. It's just on my mind. I was talking about it to some journalists today who was writing an article in the Future. So not all your locations are in shopping malls, but certainly you have a major piece of that. You have a major presence in shopping malls. Like, how are you thinking about the modern shopping mall? What's it going to take from your perspective as an anchor to see innovate? What does innovation look like in shopping malls to you? And what do they need to do, the operators, to keep or stay relevant in your minds?
Right. Well, many have already engaged in some form of transformation in order to make it more of a multidisciplinary experience, I guess, and ensuring that it's a destination where people can be entertained, potentially have access to other types of services, be able to have high quality restaurants. And I'm not talking about just a nifty renovated food court, and
more bespoke, like at Square One, right? More bespoke, like your location, Square One there.
Yes, food exactly. Being able to have a diversity as well of activities and offering from a commercial perspective. Is there some like true entertainment facilities that integrate the mall of the future? I'm interested to find out whether the interconnectivity between office space and living space as well will kind of all come to coexist. Yeah. So a lot of redevelopment happening around legacy malls.
Yeah.
I'll be interested
to see. Live, work, play, shop thing, right?
I'm sorry, say again?
That live, work, play, shop kind of integration, like we see at the Well or in Hudson Yards, or these big properties that put it all together, right?
Right, and integrate that with modern transit systems and some of the I think of what's going on in Burnaby or Oak Ridge, where they're redeveloping legacy shopping malls into multi-use residential office. Plus, they're built around a transportation infrastructure for public transit. So there's a really interesting and some of the I segue to how things are in Asia or in Europe. There's a lot of that exists already in other parts of the world. I think that we have, just given the fact that we've always been able to benefit from a lot more space than many countries, I think we haven't been as innovative as potentially we could be in engaging more densely in terms of how we how we bring architecture to life.
Last question for you, second last question. Thinking about your retail strategy pre-COVID and the before time versus how you see it today. What in your mind has changed? When I think of both acceleration of trends, e-commerce, thanks to the COVID era, but I also imagine some things have changed. Maybe the way we work has changed, and that has a fairly material impact on, I suspect, on both assortment and location and all those things. How are you thinking about maybe too early to call it post-COVID, but today's modern retail environment going forward, and what's different?
I think, Michael, I'm gonna hope that your post-COVID statement is true.
Well, you and
so I'm going to bank on that. That will be my good news of the day if I can take your words as being true. I think that the pre-COVID, post-COVID era. One thing that happened clearly was an acceleration of e-commerce. We all knew it was the investment in e-commerce was necessary. It just confirmed that strategy. We had already heavily invested in our web infrastructure. We have an in-house team that does all of our web development, from photography to copyright to web graphic design and so on. So that all comes together with our own in-house teams. The service journey as well, how the experience comes to life online is extremely important. And you need infrastructure. So we built a state-of-the-art automated facility in order to be able to take on that increase in volume.
And that's open now, right? Last time I spoke, right? That's up and running. That's fantastic. Just
it is.
Everything timing was about a year off, but
absolutely.
There, right?
At the very beginning of COVID, it felt like the worst decision I had ever made, really, because it was the biggest investment the business had ever engaged in. COVID hits. All of our expertise from the engineers that were necessary to bring it to life from Europe and from the United States all had to head home. We were trying to set up, this mega infrastructure, a fully automated facility via Zoom meetings. I will counsel everyone that's listening to never do that. And so it was terrible timing, but so what initially seemed to be like the worst decision, after the fact, it took about 6 weeks, right? From the time when we shut our stores down, to see a true acceleration in the web, it took about 4 to 6 weeks to start seeing a really high acceleration. So our infrastructure was sufficiently in place to be able to respond to that increase in volume. So that was great news. So today we benefit from that infrastructure. So that's certainly something that has changed, and our web volume has dramatically advanced versus where it was and where we were anticipating it to be. We are hitting volumes that were part of our 2025 business plan. So it was a really massive acceleration.
A great acceleration
during COVID. And the nice thing now is that we're seeing that a big part of that web traffic is actually sticky and was probably acquisition that we were able to do during COVID. So that's a good element. I think some of the trends post COVID is that perhaps a return to the interest or the demands on sustainability. We have an industry which still has a lot of work to do in terms of reducing the impact. We have our vision program that we've been working on for a few years already, where we're engaging in using circular textiles. We're engaging in reducing water usage, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Just being more thoughtful, even social, in terms of social impact or economic impact of our sourcing footprint. So those demands, I think, will accelerate post-COVID. And the reality is there's a massive talent crunch as well in the industry and just in the world in general. So
that's not a short-term issue either. I did an interview with former Governor of the Bank of Canada, Stephen Poloz, who put out a new book, and he said, listen, if you're thinking the labor crunch is a short-term phenomenon, it's a global long-run issue, right? Which brings up issues of technology. And I guess let me integrate it in my last question is as you step into this new role, the challenges you face, in a high service environment, you can't really automate a great experience in store with an associate and a customer. So these must be foremost in your mind, yeah?
Absolutely. The talent crunch is something we talk about daily. Combine that with an inflationary environment that we haven't seen for 40 plus years, and combined as well with very, very difficult supply chains and changing or evolving customer trends that we haven't seen where they're actually going to stabilize. We're just a few weeks out of COVID, if we're honest about it. And the reality is, yes, things are stabilizing. I feel good about the future of physical retail, frankly. I'm not as pessimistic as some relative to, the death of the store and so on. I think there's a social aspect to shopping that will remain.
100%. Yeah,
there's an entertainment part to all of that you can't replace just...
inspiration, all these things, right? I mean, if shopping was just buying stuff, we'd all just do it online, right?
Right.
Because that's just the most efficient way to do it. But
and how much time can you spend in your pajamas, right?
I've spent about enough, thank you. I think I'm ready to have a great retail shopping experience, and I know where I'm going to go to get it. Well, listen, Bernard, this has been a fantastic interview. I think we could talk for a long time about all the things that are happening in the industry, but let's stop it here. You've got a great run ahead of you. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I wanted to thank you for making time to chat with me, and I wish you continued success.
Well, thank you. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity. It was a good chat. It it brings some of the thoughts back to the forefront. So always useful.
Thanks for tuning into this special episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and click and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically twice a week. And check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Conversations with Commerce Next podcast, and the Food Professor podcast with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my all-new YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of Michael LeBlanc Company and Maven Media. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at michaelleblanc.co. Have a safe week, everyone.